Got an exciting episode for everybody. Been getting a lot of requests for a Gelcoat and non-skid mixed together, a Gelcoat non-skid video. And that's what we have in store for you folks at home today. Now, if you've been following the channel, we've got this really cool panel that we've been building over the last week or so. That's a Coosa board core with several layers of 1708 biaxial. We use some peel ply on that surface to give us this nice, beautiful, smooth, ready for Gelcoat surface. And I've already went ahead and taped off the perimeter here a little bit. And we're going to be using some grip text from a company called All Grip, which if you jump back in the channel, we painted my brother's 42-foot Tiana with some All Grip. That's a pretty popular paint system to use on big yachts and sailboats and whatnot. And then we're going to be using some Gelcoat from Total Boat. Now you'll notice this says without wax, and this one says contains wax or with wax. That is probably one of the #1 questions we get on the channel, is when to use Gelcoat with wax and when to use it without wax, and what is the difference and why would you do that? So during this video, we're going to answer those questions for you and hopefully give you some clarity. Now what we did is we've gone ahead and kind of based on just my experience, we've poured up. We've got about 10 ounces or so of Gelcoat already poured up, and we have poured up the Gelcoat without wax. Now wax does help Gelcoat cure, but typically we only put it in the last coat. If you're doing 2 or 3 coats like we're doing today, you're always going to want to start with Gelcoat without wax. So PPE always in order. Y'all may even hear a little bit of a fan running in the background, so we got some good ventilation. Now if you're doing this at home in an enclosed space, I know I probably say this a bunch, but a good respirator to knock down the fumes. Oftentimes when we're videoing, we just don't use one because we got good airflow and the audio quality is a little bit better for everybody. But we've got our MEK set up here. Now we typically, when you buy any of these materials, you're going to get a couple ounces of MEK. I typically buy it in a gallon container, and then I like to use these little squeeze bottles here that well, I'll tell you what, we'll put a link below our video's description, all the stuff we use on the channel, including even with Total Boat there. If you guys want to order some of their Gelcoat, you can use totalboat.com/fishbump as a discount code. Y'all can save some money for you folks watching at home. So generally the recommendation on Gelcoat is 1 to 3% on the catalyst. And it's actually February here, but our surface temps, we're having a really mild temperature right now. So we got 75 degrees, which is about perfect for working with Gelcoat. And we're gonna go close to 10 ounces. We're gonna go probably right there at about 8 ounces or so, which I always use my little cheat sheet here. That would put us right there in that upper 2% range if you're going to be mixing some Gelcoat. We want this to move along nicely because we're trying to get this video done for you folks this afternoon, moving things right along. Good thorough mix always. Now you could use obviously a drill mixer if you wanted to, but maybe a lot of you folks at home just have the basics coming together. And we want to make this accessible for everybody. You don't have to have a lot of expensive tools. If you're wanting to freshen up the Gelcoat on your sailboat or your fishing boat, this is going to be definitely a helpful episode for you folks. Now one thing we do have a couple of different, this you'll notice is a coarse non-skid, and we got an extra coarse. So that's something to keep in mind when you're purchasing non-skids. Not all of them are going to be the same texture. And matter of fact, you can look at this little sample piece. I laid some out for you folks. That is going to be the coarse. That is going to be the extra coarse. So I hope that shows up on camera. We are going to go ahead with the extra coarse, I believe, today. But we need to lay down a base coat of Gelcoat first. Now, you may have been following the channel and may have seen us apply Gelcoat before, but we haven't applied a lot of non-skid. And if you're new to the channel, I'd like to welcome you. My name is Joe Buskins. This is our family's boat shop. I'm a second-generation professional boat builder and a 100-ton licensed captain. and we build and repair boats in the winter months. In the summer months, we spend out in the Gulf running our charter boat that we custom built here in our family's boat shop. So generally with Gelcoat, one of the things you always want to be sure of is getting a very, very thorough mix. We go left, we go right, kind of turn from the bottom. Very important to get your catalyst mixed in thoroughly. If you don't get a good mix on your catalyst, your Gelcoat will not cure. And that's the difference in Gelcoat. It cures, it doesn't dry like a one-part paint. So very important. And I like to use a pan. Typically, that's going to be our go-to. It's less likely to get any unmixed material if you transfer out of your mixing container into a pan. And we'll be using some rollers to apply our Gelcoat today. We don't want to waste any of that. Well, typically we're going to need 3 coats, and I'm going to try to move through this as rapidly as I can, but I also want to make a very detailed video for you folks, so I don't want you to miss anything. So hang in there with me. I promise you this will be full of useful information. By the end of the video, you will have a firm grasp on how to properly Gelcoat and add non-skid. Our little tape trick there that we like to use to clean any lint and debris. And we have upgraded our rollers a little bit today. We've gone to the Corona, the glass coater. Typically like a 3/8 snap is kind of what I prefer. Now a roller is going to give you a bit of a textured finish. If you wanted something smoother, it could be sprayed, and we have a solution for that as well if you wanted to do it. A lot of folks out there may be just fine with a roller finish. Now Gelcoat is quite thick, so you're going to need a specialized spray rig if you want to run it through a spray gun. There is a company that we've shown their products before here on the channel. Pretty cool, called the Glass Coater. It's got a 4.8 millimeter tip. That's actually it right there. And if you folks wanted to spray this Gelcoat and get a smoother finish, you could certainly do that. Now also, sometimes you can thin the Gelcoat a little bit, and that is another thing we get a lot of questions on. Thinning. A styrene monomer is pretty much what we recommend. I don't recommend acetone. Acetone is a solvent and it will cut Gelcoat, and you certainly can use it to clean up your tools and whatnot, but you do not want to thin your Gelcoat with acetone. Styrene is the actual base that is used, or one of the solvents that's used in Gelcoat, and that would be the correct way to go. Now we did a roller finish on our workboat, our charter boat there on the interior, because we kind of wanted a flat, non-glossy finish. There is another product called Duratec, and we've used some other products here on the channel. There are high gloss additives that you can add into Gelcoat, but I don't typically, you got to be careful adding them on your base or your foundation coat. Now if you have a boat that is already white, you know, it's been molded, and just say your non-skid needs to be touched up, it would be a matter of sanding or surfacing the non-skidded area, and you could go directly to adding non-skid and then a sealing coat of Gelcoat. But because of the nature of this panel here, we are going to go ahead and just put a base coat down. Now I know I'm giving a lot of information there folks, but I want to give you all options. And if Gelcoat is your thing, we've got several videos talking about Gelcoat application and different additives. Y'all can really learn a lot if you go back in the channel. Got over 150 videos, everything from how to build like our 29-footer to molding composite parts, and we've got a project boat that we're working on. So again, I want to welcome everybody, and if you're finding value in the channel and enjoy what we do, please remember to give us that like, that share, that thumbs up, and please remember to subscribe if you haven't already. That does really help us out. All right folks, come on down here and check out what we're doing. We've got just a little brush here, and we're doing what is called rolling and tipping. And if you folks at home wanted to do something where you get a little glossier, a little smoother, a little flatter finish on your Gelcoat, you can apply it with your roller, which is going to give you really nice even distribution, and then you can come back with a decent quality brush. Now this is, I think it's a Purdy or a Worcester, but it's not anything super fancy. I generally like to brush across one way. Real light motions though. You're basically kind of just dragging and knocking that roller texture off. Now again, if you want a pretty aggressive non-skid, sometimes people like that roller texture anyway. Can work really great for more of a commercial application, or like a charter boat or a fishing boat. You just want something that's more utilitarian. I wanted to show you all that technique. Now this could also be applied if you wanted to re-gel coat your boat. You basically would sand the surface down with probably around some 120 grit. You want to be sure the surface is really good and clean. You can roll some gel coat on, brush it out, and it usually takes 4 or 5 coats if you're going to be doing like a wet sand and polish. But that is typically the way to do it, or you're going to want to use a dedicated spray rig like the gel coater. So that should be good to go at our temps. We probably need an hour or 2 for that to tack off, and we'll get ready to apply some actual non-skid. Y'all come on down and check out how nicely this gel coat has cured. There's an ever so slight tack to it, but otherwise it is completely what you would expect for gel coat that does not have wax in it. Now we gave that about an hour and a half or 2 hours or so, and I did initially use our little Wagner heat source here to kind of warm up the gel coat just to get it up to temp a little bit. Sometimes we'll use that technique or that trick to speed the cure rate along a little bit. Now what we're going to do is we're going ahead with our Grip Tex additive. So even though this is made by the company All Grip, and typically their paints are going to be more of like a linear polyurethane, more like an automotive style paint, but marine grade, it works really good with gel coat. And I know that because that's what I've been using for years. Even like on our charter boat, we ran 150 plus charter trips last year in it, and the gel coat and the non-skid is holding up really well. So we don't need quite as much gel coat for our second application of non-skid per our square foot. So we're going with about 6 ounces this time, and I have found that about 1 tablespoon per 2 ounces of gel coat seems to be pretty darn close to what we need. And so generally what I will do is take our little tongue depressors that we use as stirring sticks all the time and just get a level tablespoon. So for 6 ounces we would need 3 level tablespoons of our Grip Tex. Now you can add or subtract from that. It does not have to be exactly the rate that I'm showing. If you want a less aggressive texture, you could add a little bit less material. If you wanted a more aggressive texture, obviously you could add more. And this mixes in really nice and easy. At first you're going to see some clumps and bumps there, but don't let that alarm you at all. That is completely normal for that to happen. Now what I like to do with any non-skid additive, especially the Grip Tex, is you mix it in and you give it a few moments, what they call an induction time. And that's real common with additives in certain paints, with All Grip, even like with their activators and catalyst. But I like to do that even with the gel coat. So we're going to mix it in really, really thoroughly, and while that is inducting into the gel coat, usually takes 5-10 minutes or so, we will go ahead and pull the rest of our masking here. And what I did is I just bordered this so that we had a nice clean crisp edge. And this is a piece I just made for you folks. This is not really a actual part that we're using for anything in our boat shop here, but I want to be able to demonstrate for everybody, and sometimes this is the best way to do it, is just do it on our work table. Now I'm going to put a nice wide border on here. This would be pretty typical if you were building a boat or repainting a boat. A lot of times we use an 1.5 inch border or so, but you could certainly use a narrower border. And so what I'm going to be doing is just using that nice crisp edge that we laid down. And I'm not sticking this real hard because I am kind of rushing this along for everybody. So I'm not trying to stick that super hard because there is still a little bit of tackiness left on the gel coat. Just following that edge there. We do have a video of doing this on our 29 footer when we were gel coating the interior vit. Always recommend to jump back in the channel and check that out if you haven't already. May give you a better idea of how we do it when we're working inside of a boat. You definitely have to plan your work out. You can walk on gel coat that does not have wax in it. You just have to be really careful and have to be sure your shoes are really clean, because it does still have a little bit of tack to it. But sometimes you have to come back and walk on it in a boat because you have no other option. You just have to. But I don't prefer it if I can avoid it. So remember that. If you can avoid, a lot of times we'll use extension handles on our rollers, or we will work from the edges. We will try to plan our work so that we're not walking on it any more than we have to. All right, now one thing you can do, I'm gonna probably leave most of the corners squared off, but you can come in here and maybe hit diagonally on the corner with your tape. And if you wanted a bit of a radius, you can just continue to fill that corner in a little bit. Get a nice edge there. Trying to be gentle with the gel coat there, folks. A lot of times I will also just push and tear. You can see I'm kind of just hitting each sharp corner. And that'll give you a fairly nice radius to work off of. Now I also have seen people, and I've done it myself, you can use something even like the edge of a can, and you can just tape straight over the corner and then lay the can there, and then use a razor knife to just trim a little line into the tape and then peel the excess off, and that can give you a nice radius as well. I've done it both ways and had success, and that's what this channel is all about, folks. There's a lot of different ways things can be done. This isn't certainly the only way, and I'm not saying you gotta do exactly what we do, but it is methods that we have used for generations in our family shop and had success with. We've had a lot of experience with gel coat over the years, and I'm happy to share what we have learned working with it. Always interesting to hear what you folks at home are working with too, what kind of projects. I try really hard to read all your comments and respond to as many as I can, so don't be upset if I can't respond, but I do try to answer as many questions as possible. So thank y'all so much for commenting and watching. So now we've given this a few minutes. Now you certainly could probably give it a little bit more, but just again for the sake of time today to move things along, we've got that inducted. We're gonna go ahead. I'm gonna go pretty hot on our catalyst here. We're gonna probably go close to 5 cc's of the MEKP. Again, we want this to move along rapidly today. The more catalyst you add, the faster it is going to cure. And again, you will notice that we use gel coat without wax because we are going to be going over this gel coat with another coat of gel coat, and we're going to be adding something to it, I believe, at the end. I want to give you all as many options as possible, and there are some really nice clear additives like I had mentioned earlier. That one's by Orca Composites, similar to Duratec. Maybe people have heard of Duratec, but I really like the Orca Composites clear additive. And what it does is it allows the gel coat to flow out a little prettier, more paint-like. Again, very important to mix super thoroughly. Always tell people mix till you know it's mixed, and then mix just a little bit more. But also remember that the clock is ticking. Once you add that activator, in most cases you've got about 15 minutes or so before it starts to gel, and you can't roll or brush with it anymore. And at that point, you just need to stop, maybe get a fresh roller and brush and mix up a whole nother batch and get going again if it happens to you, if it starts to cure while you're working. But don't let that discourage you, folks, and don't become afflicted by analysis paralysis. That's kind of where you get to where you think about your project so much that you never ever do it. You're only going to learn if you get out there and give it a try. And we use a lot of really good products on the channel, and we've got a lot of videos to help y'all with your projects at home and all around the world. Lots of international viewers. Want to welcome everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. A lot of folks from Australia and the UK here lately, so really nice to have you folks visit the channel. Okay, we're doing the same deal. We've got a good thorough mix, but just to be sure we don't have any unmixed gel coat, I did get a fresh liner for our pan there. Now generally I have found that, kind of depending on how heavy or how light the coat, it seems like it takes about an ounce of gel coat, somewhere between an ounce and a half of gel coat per square foot, kind of give or take. But you might want to play around with that. Different brands are going to have different coverages. Same deal, we want to be sure we don't have any lint on our roller. And I think we are good to go here. Just get a nice even load on our Corona, and that is a 3/8 snap roller, by the way. You could use a quarter, you could use a little bit finer. It's going to give you a little smoother finish. If you use a coarser nap, it's going to be more aggressive. I'm using the extra coarse non-skid on this panel so that y'all can see a little better. Pretty aggressive non-skid. For our charter boat, we want something like that. A good non-skid surface is very important for safety, obviously. And remember, when we put our third coat on there, it's going to go over the non-skid and it'll kind of smooth it out a little bit, so it won't look quite so aggressive. It won't be quite so aggressive. Oh, it's looking really nice. Sometimes you got to kind of look at it from different angles and kind of inspect it in the light. You don't want to miss any spots. Yeah, that looks very decent. You want to load your roller about the same amount each time. Try to get a good even distribution. Out to the edge. Looks very nice. Again, sometimes what I will do is go one direction and we go another, edge to edge, a very light hand, and I'm not going super fast. Roller does a good job of distributing it. Now, as I mentioned earlier, if you want to spray this, it is possible, but you've got to have the right rig to do it. The gel coater, again, it offers that big tip, that 4-point, see, there you go. It's the GX4 with the 4.8 millimeter nozzle. We actually have a video here on the channel where we ran some non-skid through the gel coater. So the tip is large enough that it'll actually spray gel coat with a non-skid additive in it. And that is pretty impressive. Not every spray rig will do that. You gotta have one very specific, and again, you're gonna need the 4.8 millimeter tip with the gel coater if you want to do something. But y'all check that. I mean, that is first class, man. I mean, that looks really, really nice. I'm hoping our tape comes up. At this point, you can go ahead and pull the tape. Sometimes people will wait for it to tack just a little bit, but I think we are good to go. And if you look at the pan, folks, we did our calculations about right. That was about 6 ounces of gel coat for about, give or take, this is right around 5 cubic feet of surface area. So that kind of gives you an idea of how many ounces if you're doing a little bit lighter coat with the non-skid. So we're going to come off of there nice and easy. I like to pull nice and crisp away from away from, make a sharp angle there, kind of an acute angle, pulling back away. You can see that's creating a really nice, crisp, clean border. Looks first class. Just take your time. Like I said, this gel coat is very fresh and it's still got some tack to it. A lot of folks, again, are there. You can see how our corner comes out. We did that on our 29, and I've been very, very pleased. Yeah, check that out. Try to get out of the shadows and let you folks see how pretty that looks. I am very, very pleased with that.
I am very pleased.
Okay, so again, the little trick, and then folks, if y'all don't have a little Wagner and a little infrared temperature sensor and you're doing some gel coat and fiberglass work, that is some money well spent. We'll put a link for these. 74 degrees. You can see that if we throw a little bit of warmth here to kind of accelerate things, we'll show y'all how rapidly you can bring the temp up. But you typically do not want to bring it over 90 degrees, would be on the upper end, and typically I hold in the mid 80s. And that is another good point, folks. If you're new to working with gel coat and polyester and vinyl ester resins in general, about 60 degrees is the very minimum, and I would say about 95 degrees is the very top end. Beyond 95 degrees, it gets really, really hard to get it mixed and even out of the pan before it starts to gel up. And below 60, you can have problems with it curing. And with gel coat, you can run a little higher catalyst ratio. So when it's cold, you would run closer to that 3% ratio. If it's really, really hot, you might drop all the way down to about that 1% ratio. And I'll show you folks here, just a little bit of warming. And we should see we're already up to 81 there. All right, folks, we've given it a couple more hours for our gel coat with the non-skid in it to tack off. And you can see there again, I can put my finger on there. We're not getting any color off of there. It feels nice and firm. Went ahead and pulled all the masking, and to save a little bit of time, I went ahead and poured up some of the Total Boat gel coat, but this does contain wax, which just remember that typically wax is going to go on the last coat there. If you want it to be non-tacky or non-sticky, you're going to want to use gel coat with wax, and they do make wax additives. So a lot of times, like here in the family's boat shop, we almost always purchase our bulk gel coat without wax, and then you can purchase so they call it a sanding aid or a wax additive or modifier C. You add it about 2 to 3% or so, and that'll make your non-wax gel coat waxy. Now, I did touch on the air dry coatings. This is the super clear additive that you can add to your gel coat to get a little more gloss and shine, and that's what it looks like. Now, it can be added up to 50%. Say if you went 2 ounces and 2 ounces or 4 ounces and 4 ounces. We are actually going to do a little split there. We're doing 4 ounces of gel coat, and I may have jiggled this a little bit, but we're showing just a touch over 4 ounces, and then about 2 ounces of our additive. Now again, you can thin gel coat a little bit with styrene monomer, but at about a max of about 5% is the maximum. And generally I don't recommend it unless the gel coat has gotten, say it's gotten old and kind of thickened up sometimes, which happens. You can reduce it just a bit, or if you're going to be spraying it, you can do the same. Now, I did want to back up just a little bit. Obviously, this was a brand new panel, but if you had an older surface, sanding the surface before we put any gel coat down with like some 80 grit, and then using a good dewaxer and surface prep. Again, Total Boat is a real good source for that. And again, they have a fish bump discount code. It's totalboat.com/fishbump. So that helps out the channel, helps out the folks that help our channel. So we're going in with our additive, and you can use, again, you can add these together as far as having the clear and the wax. But if you add up to 50% on your clear additive, you don't have to have a gel coat with wax in it. The clear additive acts as an air inhibitor and helps the gel coat dry tack free. And again, if gel coat is really interesting to you folks, we've got multiple videos here on the channel lots of videos on fiberglass cloth selection and doing fairing and body work, using vinyl ester, polyester, and epoxy resins, how to laminate plywood together. The list goes on and on. And so we've got a decent mix there. And again, per our chart, we were at about 6 ounces, but I'm going to go quite spicy. I'm going to go closer to 5 cc's. Once again, that worked really well for our last batch. Again, always be careful working with MEKP. It is highly corrosive. You do not want it in your eyes. You do not want it on your skin. You want to be in a well-ventilated space, or be wearing a quality respirator, or have a fan moving air away from you so that you're not inhaling this stuff. Tell you what, a lot of folks are curious about it. You know, and a lot of these companies offer smaller volumes as well, so you can get a little bit and do some experimenting at home. Gel coat repair is another popular topic. If your boat's got a scratch or a ding in it, we've got videos showing how instead of thinning the gel coat, there are additives that can go back into it to thicken it and make it like a putty or a paste, where you can fix gouges and scratches and whatnot. So a lot of questions these days on stuff that is in our channel. If folks would just take a few minutes to scroll back, I am sure you will find some helpful info. All right, once again, we're doing the 2-pot method there. That'll minimize the chance of having any uncatalyzed material. It also helps your gel coat stay a little cooler. Now today, it's not really a problem at all. Temperature in the 70s is about perfect. I kind of tell people, think of gel coat as people's comfort zone. Like in the 70s is really good. 80s is fine. As it gets in the 90s, it gets kind of hot. We've already blown off our roller. We've cleaned it. Now I want to show you all another trick. A lot of times I will tape it, but you can also take your air nozzle and run it either way, and a lot of times it'll get rid of some of those potentially loose fibers or hairs. And this clear additive is going to make this gel coat flow out a little bit nicer. If you want more of a cosmetic finish, you don't have to do it. But here we go. Here we go, folks. It's going to take several passes to get. You'll notice it kind of fills up some of the non-skid there, which is okay. So it's going to soften it a bit. Sometimes people worry about the non-skid being too aggressive, and the extra coarse is quite aggressive, so bear that in mind. Now, I may have gotten ahead of myself, folks. I wanted to keep a nice little border on here just so that this is a nice demo piece that I can show in the shop. So I'm going to run a little bit of tape back on that edge. And it happens sometimes. You folks, a lot of times if you're working with it and you notice something that needs to be done, even for us when you do this professionally and all the time, but I like that nice crisp edge there. Now this is totally optional, but sometimes when you're doing multiple coats of gel coat, you do have to pull the masking tape off and sometimes reapply it between different coats. If you let gel coat dry over your masking tape for too long, it can become almost impossible to remove your masking tape. So many times, like if we paint over gel coat in the afternoon, I will try to remove it, and then you have to retape the following day, or else you may not be able to remove your masking tape. So that is actually something important to remember there, folks. Don't expect just to leave it. It's not, gel coat is much, much tougher than paint, and you wouldn't want that to happen to you. But you can see now that's actually even starting to flow out there. It's always a good idea too to have a second person. My son Logan, who is behind the camera right now, he helps me a lot, and he's got really sharp eyes when it comes to spotting a spot that is missed maybe, or something that I skipped over. There you go. Just take your time. Nice and easy. And remember, I do this a bunch, and right now we do have the Gelcoat is activated and catalyzed, but because the temps are good and this is a real easy panel to work on, not a problem. Okay, here we go. Load up our roller once again, and let's get some nice Gelcoat everywhere, especially really focus on the non-skid panel there. And you can tell already that the Gelcoat that we're applying with the clear additive is a little thinner, and it's going to flow out a little prettier. It won't leave quite as much of the roller tracks. And remember our little trick, we can always come back and touch it up with a paintbrush, do a little bit of rolling and tipping if we need to. This is something y'all could really freshen up an older boat. You can theoretically even put this kind of non-skid over a geometric non-skid. If you've got like a molded in non-skid on your boat, you just have to use something like a wire brush or some Scotch-Brite pad to get down in the non-skid surface. You definitely got to prepare the surface well before new Gelcoat, or else it may not bond and adhere properly. Go front to back, side to side. All right, that looks quite nice. Now again, if I wanted to, we've got our paintbrush kind of waiting in our 5-gallon bucket. Now sometimes, if I want to really, really clean it extra good, I will use our little spray bottle and hit it with a little bit of fresh acetone. Remember, acetone is highly flammable though, folks. It's right there in the same categories like gasoline. You wouldn't want to really get too close to it and breathe the vapors, and certainly wouldn't want to work with anything, any cigarettes or any ignition sources. Now we can, if we want to knock down this texture a little bit on the outside, you can drag a brush over it and do a little bit of a roll and tip. You're going to see a little bit of the texture from the Gelcoat underneath. Maybe my cameraman can zoom in right here and we can see the difference in the roller texture and the rolled and tip. And now again, you're going to see a little bit of the ripple from the previous roll and tip application. So it's not going to come out as smooth as if you sprayed it, but what's nice, if you're in a boatyard or at your home, you don't have to worry about overspray. If you're spraying this stuff and you're near an automobile or another boat at the boatyard, you got to be very, very careful, because it can contaminate other surfaces. And you can see now that is even laying out even smoother than it was. Now that was a pretty close guesstimate as well. We took about 6 ounces or so to do that 5 square feet, and we could have gotten a little bit more, but I am pretty pleased with that. I mean, maybe we'll get at a real low angle here and you can see. Now one thing you can also do, you can even mix your additives. Like if you folks wanted to add half of the extra coarse and half of the coarse, and of course they make a medium and fine, and I will do my best to put a link to all of the supplies and tools that we use for y'all's convenience and more. I mean, we've got a lot of tools we've used in the past that work and are going to make your life easier. And if you're just tuning into this episode and want to see how we actually built this panel and laminated it, and actually it's built on a mirrored surface there, so you got a beautiful molded Gelcoat surface, feel free to jump back a couple episodes and check that out. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, remember again, the thumbs up, like, share, comment, tell a friend, spread the word. We want to do more of this. It's Captain Joe here with Fish Bump TV. My son Logan working super hard behind the scenes as my amazing cameraman. And we will catch you folks in the next episode.